Most of you might have heard me this morning talking about new treatments for Fragile X syndrome, and we have some great visitors here that will tell you their personal experience. We have Carrie and Andy Wheeler and their son Max and their daughter Eva. Max has Fragile X syndrome, Eva does not. We have some of our international trainees who work in their countries, Dr. Onar Dursun, who is a psychiatrist and a leader in Turkey, and he's been in the government, in the ministry, and trying to organize what happens with rare neurodevelopmental disorders, including autism and Fragile X. And Dr. Elisa Roleri, who's a neuropsychiatrist from Rome. She'll tell you what's going on in Italy. And Dr. May, a pediatrician from Thailand, and there's a lot of Fragile X also in Thailand. She's from Chiang Mai, and she's been spending some time at the Mind Institute, so you get an international perspective too. And also, Pascal is a pre-med student from Xavier, and he's originally from Nigeria, and lots going on in Nigeria too, so that's pretty exciting. So I'm just going to talk just for a few minutes just to give you some general background about pre-mutation disorders. So you remember the pre-mutation has a much smaller CGG repeat number, 55 to 200, and the full mutation is over 200. So the full mutation, the gene usually turns off, so there's no messenger RNA and no protein, particularly in males, because they only have one X chromosome, but in females they can make from the other X some of the Fragile X protein, so they're less affected. But we're going to focus on pre-mutation carriers. And these individuals are much more common in the general population. About 1 in 200 women, in some studies as high as 1 in 157 women in the general population has the pre-mutation, and about 1 in every 250 to 400 males in the general population has the pre-mutation. Now, males have only the pre-mutation in their sperm, and they pass on the pre-mutation to all of their daughters who get their only X chromosome. And then the daughters go on. Usually most individuals with the pre-mutation do not have developmental problems. But we're going to talk about some of the other difficulties they may have. But the daughters of carrier fathers go on to have children with Fragile X syndrome, because in a woman, when she passes on that mutated X, 50% of the time, because the other X is normal, it'll go to a full mutation, particularly if the CGG repeat number is greater than 90. So carrier moms can have kids, both males and females, with the full mutation, like Max back there. And hopefully Max will come and talk to us so you get a feel about Fragile X syndrome. And Max is a wonderful guy who's very funny. He has intense interest in country music, and he is an expert in country music. And when people who play country music shows and Max talks to them afterwards, they usually bow down to him because they know he loves their music. So intense interest areas. And hopefully Max will talk to us in a little bit. But pre-mutation carriers, the women can have early menopause, which means menopause before age 40. And we're going to hear a little bit about early menopause from Cindy. And then they can also have problems with anxiety and sometimes depression. And later on, particularly in males, they can have the Fragile X associated tremor ataxia syndrome, or FAXTAS. And hopefully Cindy will tell us about FAXTAS in her dad. And he has now passed away, but I knew him for many, many years. And about 40% of males with the premutation can develop FACS-TAS, about 40% by their 60s, but by their 80s, about 75% develop FACS-TAS. And it's less common in women, but we're doing a lot of research about the subtle symptoms of FACS-TAS in some female carriers. So these are a lot of disorders. So why does the premutation have problems like this? And it's because the premutation, 55 to 200 repeats, produces excess levels of messenger RNA. So you remember the messenger RNA is like the copy of the DNA that goes out to make protein. And the protein levels are usually normal unless they have a very high-end premutation, like above 150 or 160. But the excess level of messenger RNA can sequester other proteins that are important for neuronal function and also the function of other cells, particularly in the ovary. The egg and the supportive cells for the ovum are affected by this RNA toxicity, and that's why they get early menopause. So it's the most common genetic cause of early menopause. So OBGYN doctors are now routinely testing for the Fragile X carrier state, particularly if a woman presents with ovarian failure or early menopause. Or even infertility, because sometimes that's how they present, is with infertility. So they run out of eggs very early on because the eggs die off related to the RNA toxicity. So I deal as much with pre-mutation problems as I do with full mutation problems. And for those that have the pre-mutation, we usually recommend exercise, because that stimulates neurogenesis. We recommend antioxidants like green tea, turmeric, omega-3. There's a lot of antioxidants available. And we have done studies of treatment for FACS-TAS. The current study we're going to be initiating is called an epicatechin study. So epicatechin is a supplement. It's a flavonoid that's in green tea and dark chocolate, and it actually helps to improve mitochondrial function, reduce oxidative stress, and stimulate the replication of mitochondria. So it could be generally a very helpful supplement for aging, and we'll see if it does anything to the white matter disease that we see in individuals with FACS-TAS. So I can tell you a lot more about the different studies we've done in premutation carriers, but I wanted to give a chance for this family to talk about their experience. Carrie, do you want to come up and... Okay. Yeah. So Carrie has been a media star when Time Magazine did a special about Fragile X to kind of educate the community. Carrie and the whole family came out to talk about it.
Yes, and we've done the different articles for our baclofen study as well.
Oh yeah.
So we've been around for 24 years.
Yeah.
Max is 24. So
yeah, and I've known Max since he was
15, 17 months old, I believe.
Yeah,
he was just
17
a
months
tiny
old,
baby.
and I've watched him grow up, and
Yeah.
he's been in many studies. Maybe he'll come up and talk to us in a little bit.
He
but
might
I think...
run up and then run back. That's kind of his thing.
But Carrie can give us her perspective, and then maybe Andy can talk a little bit too about living with Fragile X, and talk about yourself, and FACS-AN, meaning Fragile X associated neuropsychiatric problems like depression or anxiety or insomnia or chronic pain, chronic fatigue. All of these are common problems in premutation carriers.
Okay. So my name's Carrie, and I'm a carrier. My father passed this on to me. Never had heard of it, ever. And we got the diagnosis, and immediately we found Randi. And so not knowing what this was, I was terrified, which the Minustitude actually kind of helped me through that. But to find out that my dad was going to be affected by the gene that gave me Max, and then that I would struggle with early menopause and some anxiety, and you're not really thinking when you're 35, oh, I'm in menopause. I'm thinking, I have lost my mind. Like, I am crazy. I don't like anybody. I can't sleep. I'm hot. And so, it's been a learning experience through this whole thing. But I wouldn't have it any other way, because we've met some really great people, and we have great Max, and we have, my other kids are wonderful and so empathetic and just lovely. My dad, once Max was diagnosed, we got all tested, and so he's the only child I have that is affected. But my dad, about 20 years, he passed away 3 years ago, and about 20 years before, we started seeing some changes in his behavior. So my dad was an architectural engineer, very successful, charming, sweet guy. He started just doing some very strange things, like hiding toilet paper. And he would tell my mom, go get your own, this is mine. And that was one thing with my mother, that she'll never let me forget that, and she never let him forget that. But as time went on, I would say probably about 10 years ago, he started to really decline, where we would go to dinner and he would pay the bill, but he would leave $100 too much. And we didn't catch on at first until, I think my husband finally went, oh my goodness gracious, what's he doing? So he just wasn't functioning well. And then about 5 years ago, he no longer was walking. He was no longer working. And he went into a home, and that's where he lived out the rest of his life, just because there was just no way for us to take care of him. Now, I feel like we had him a lot longer than anyone thought we would, because he did do well. He was, functioning. We were going places. He would come up here for research, and very much so in denial. So that was my experience with the FACS task, and it's not pretty. I mean, I'll say that, but he was the typical Fragile X carrier, male carrier, grandpa, right? They're intelligent, they're successful, they're all these things, and then you just kind of watch them kind of just go away. So you kind of lose them over a period of years. And as for everything else, I feel like we're very fortunate to have Max. He's been a huge joy. And again, he has taken us to places that I would have never dreamed of being. Here, first of all. Yeah, here. And in DC. And so, this community is a wonderful community to be a part of, and I'm very proud of our family and everyone that has welcomed us into this world. So,
Yeah.
got any more?
Well, so tell us what meds have been helpful for Max.
So Max is on a steady dose of Prozac and metformin. He's been on metformin. And then 10X. So those are the three meds that he has taken probably for 12 years. It's just pretty steady. And then we're currently in the study for the gel, the CBD gel. And I think, so Max's biggest issue is social. He's just very shy, gets very anxious. And I do see a change in him. So he loves it. So we just put his gel on every night and in the morning, and You'll ask him. At first I say, do you think it's helping? He'd say no. Now he says yes, but I do see him talking more. I see him being more social. He still has stranger danger. He doesn't like people he doesn't know to go towards him. But in our family and in our friend group, he's talking more. He's making better sentences. He's giving us a little bit more of who he is. So that's exciting. We did the arbaclofen study back when, and that was fine.
Yeah, that's a GABA agonist, because the GABA system, which is the inhibitory system in the brain, is underactive. So we studied a GABA agonist, arbaclofen, and it was helpful actually for kids, not so much for adults. And then Autism Speaks got the ability to use arbaclofen, and it was marginally helpful for some subgroups of autism. And then it's back again with a company that wants to redo some Fragile X studies. So I think it can be helpful. It's not a cure-all. And we haven't found anything that's a cure-all. We definitely do want to do zatomalast, the tetra or Shionogi drug for Max, because I think this could enhance cognition for him. And then another company called Mirum has another phosphodiesterase antagonist. Remember, cyclic AMP levels are low, and the tetra drug inhibits the enzyme that breaks down cyclic AMP, so the levels go up, and that allows for neuronal connections. And Mirum is a new company that has a phosphodiesterase like the tetra drug or zatomalast, but it is 5 times the penetrance into the central nervous system, so it might be 5 times the potency. And so he would be someone that could benefit from that. You have to know your letters and numbers so that you can do the NIH toolbox as part of this.
Is that the toolbox study?
Yeah.
But he's in that. Yeah.
And he can do it.
And he can read and he can write, and he can. That was my biggest thing when we found out about Fragile X, was the being lonely, and so I was naive and I thought, well, as long as he can read, he can find friends in books. So we put him in, tutoring, and he does read, but he doesn't care. He doesn't really. He can read, but he doesn't read books or anything. He reads the internet. So. Yeah, his iPad and his cell phone. So, but yeah, he does. I'm really proud of that, by the way, because that is not always that common. So, yeah, I'm very proud. I'm proud of him. He's a great guy. So, yeah, he's 24. He's 24 and kind of like the center of my whole family's universe, So luckily we've lucked out with him. He's great, and he's smart. And with this gel, I'm actually seeing more come out of him with questions and just a little bit more.
Conversation.
Yeah, just a little bit more instead of 2-word. I'm getting sentences, even if I don't like them. I'm getting them.
So you guys can go out to eat. A lot of families couldn't go to a restaurant because of the behavior problems. But I think the Zynerba CBD study allowed much more community interactions.
Well, in what you watch families, because we do see a lot of other families with Fragile X, and we didn't wait until he got okay to take him. And when we did take him, we made him behave. You are not going to get up and go to the table over there. You need to sit here. Here, we have your iPad. We have this. We have all the tools you need to sit right here. But you're not going to interrupt other people and their dining experience or, anywhere. That was when we went shopping. It was, this is what we do. And so he just learned. And you can't wait. That's the big thing I've noticed with a lot of, you can't wait. And so he's always just been pretty easy when it comes to that. I mean, it's not always fun, you know. It depends. Yeah. Yeah. No, it depends. I mean, if he's entertained, so like Randi said, he loves music. So, tonight, my husband found a bar that plays music. So we're going to go do some, listening and absolutely. But no, he'll manage pretty much anything. I mean, he does Disneyland. He doesn't always like it, but he'll do it. He'll do most anything. It's taken years. I mean, he is 24, so we've been practicing a lot. But he travels. He travels well. He pretty much will do just about anything. He works himself through it. So he'll say, "I'm nervous. Nervous is okay," and yeah, nervous is okay. So he kind of talks himself through things, and just giving him the tools. Like every once in a while he'll be like, So we don't have really any tics that he has to stem or anything. And his favorite place to be in the whole wide world is at the stage of a concert with the sea of people behind him. And I mean, that is where he thinks we have to be. If you go to a concert and you're not sitting at the stage, he's like, I want down there, So, which is insane for him to want that and to desire that and be able to handle it because it's loud and, everything else. But he thrives there. So that's our Max. That's kind of that's our life. So. And I'm through menopause now, so I am fine. Finally.
Yeah, so there's a movie called Mission to Mars. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but it's about a Fragile X guy in England who loved Lars, the drummer in Metallica. And so their mission was to go on an excursion to a Metallica conference in LA. Oh. And the whole movie is about what happened, first talking him into going, and then some of his resistance. They stopped by the Mind Institute, so we got to see him. But when he got to the Lars venue, he refused to go in. He refused to go in, and finally he went in, and Lars of Metallica was wonderful with him and got him afterwards to play the drums with him, and he just had a great time with the Metallica band. But it is a great movie, and it teaches you a lot about Fragile X and what they can and can't do. Max, do you like Metallica?
He likes Bon Jovi.
Oh, Bon Jovi. Yeah.
So Max was also a cheerleader.
Tell me, he had a great high school experience.
He did. He was a cheerleader and homecoming king. And he liked being in front and performing for the crowd. He didn't want to sit in the bleachers, but he wanted to show off, and he did.
As long as he could be part of the group and not singled out, that was his whole thing. So, as a cheerleader, he was part of the group. As long as he was part of the group, he was fine.
There's just a lot.
Yeah.
They all can do. Yeah.
So it was hard when he graduated from high school because he was not with the team anymore. And did he get depressed or anything with graduation from high school?
I don't think so. Because we live in such a small community, there were still people around. And I think at that point, even his brother was still at home. And he'll say, no more high school. I'm all done. It's been several years now. Don't cheer with the Hawks. Yeah, he was a Hawk. So, but he did great, and the community kind of helped him through. He went to the adult program within the school, so he was still on campus till he was 22. So now he's in an adult program. He's in college. Yeah, he's in college. It's a day program, but his siblings went to college, so he's in college, and he loves it. Yeah, yeah. It's actually a learning center, and it's in Fresno, and it's college. We call it college because of his siblings, and so he's just going through that now. And it's a great school. It's called Diamond Learning Center in Fresno, and he has a great time, and he's grown up some since he's been there as well. A little bit more independent, where before he was dependent on, you're going to walk me outside so I can get on the bus, and now he's like, see ya, I can do this by myself, he'll tell me, so, which is great.
So there is a Redwood Seed program at UC Davis for individuals with some intellectual disabilities, and we do have Fragile X individuals in that Redwood Seed program. They have to be able to read and write some things to go into that program, but it's pretty good. And then there's also TAFT, which is a college for kids with developmental disabilities, and that's pretty good in Southern California.
Fresno State has a version of that, the program that you're talking about, so of course that's our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So Fresno State, the downside where we had it with that is that's a program that they're really working on a lot of independent living. So their requirement is for him to live on campus.
I wouldn't
not
want
ready
him
for
to
that.
No, I know.
I'm just curious, you said you had 2 other children,
I do.
if it's not too much.
Yes.
Did you guys go IVF route with that
No.
afterwards, or you guys just naturally had?
Yeah, so Max was the last biological that I have, and I was afraid to do it again, so, yeah. Sure. So I believe I was probably 35, 36, and I really didn't know that I was going through menopause. I just thought I hated everybody, and he was the devil. For real, it was bad. The hot flashes, and it was pretty miserable. And then I finally, I thought, it's got to be me. Something's wrong with me. Like, I need meds or something, because I'm just off the charts. And they did a blood test, and the doctor, instead of saying, yes, you're in menopause, she said, you're done.
FSH was really high.
And I was like, I didn't have any help through it whatsoever. And so then I was like, oh, well, maybe now I need to get those little pellets, right? They put in your back. I think it's something. But in my area, there's a huge waiting list for these doctors that do this. So I'm fine. I am fine. No, I'm on nothing. So, but that's pretty much what I experienced, was just depression, a lot of anxiety, I was angry, and I really didn't know why. I just was really mad at everything. So, but I feel like, how long does it usually take someone to go through menopause?
Well, so the perimenopausal area could be a few years, and then you go into full menopause, and then usually the hot flashes, they'll gradually disappear. But you had an ablation, so because you have excessive bleeding, and usually that comes from not ovulating, so you don't produce progesterone. That is what stops the bleeding, at the end of your period. So if you're not ovulating, you can bleed excessively because you're not producing progesterone.
Okay. Well, and for me, it was really hard because not knowing, because I had had the ablation and not knowing what I was going through, and not even thinking about the Fragile X gene. And, you know, my dad had fax tasks. I was worried about him and taking care of him. And so it really was, and then I had Max, and it really just wasn't about me, you know. So, and it wasn't until I finally said, he can't be that bad. Life can't be that bad. And so that's when I went, and they said, oh, you're too young. And I said, will you please check me? So, and they said, you're done. So it was quite a ride. I'll say that. Yeah. But you have another question?
But you didn't have periods before that?
So I'd had an ablation for excessive periods. So there was no way to gauge it from, you know, that. So that would have probably told me something, but it should have told me when I wouldn't stop bleeding. That
she wasn't ovulating.
Yeah. But again,
She ran out of eggs and she wasn't ovulating. See, that's what caused the excessive bleeding.
Periods be a sign?
so with me, it just never stopped. It was just constant for months. And so that was kind of how that went. And that wasn't fun either. So I got the ablation, and I thought, wonderful. Life is good, but then I'm still mad at everybody.
But your OBGYN doctors did not test you for the gene mutation, did they?
You did.
Yeah, I did. But they need to know, OBGYN doctors are now more savvy. And they'll routinely test someone that has ovarian problems, early menopause, infertility, any of these problems, they'll test for the premutation. And then that can reveal a family where you see fax tests, oftentimes in the father of the woman, or sometimes in the mother, and then diagnosing Fragile X syndrome in the kids that could have autism or intellectual disability.
So much has changed over the years. So much has changed. I mean, he's 24 years old, and when we first started through this whole process, it was relatively unknown. Matter of fact, one of the scariest, here I get up, I just normally don't need the microphone to do it, but I can have it. So, first of all, I'm Andy, I'm Dad on the other side of it, you know. So much has changed over the years, and so when we look at it originally, the first thing you do, and even at that stage as the games 24 years ago, internet was still brand new, and you started to look things up. Now, at that age, now you don't know whether to trust the internet because there's a lot of crazy things that are out there. At that stage of the game, there was very little, and everything that was out there was very, very dramatic, and it was the scariest types of pieces in the world. And so we got through to a conference, and matter of fact, that was actually how we met Randi originally, was we went to a conference. The National Fragile X every 2 years has a conference, and it's an international type of a conference. And so we went out to Chicago. He was just about a year of age at that point in time, and he was having issues where at a young age he would spike fevers. And when I say he was spike fevers, I don't mean a mild fever. I'm talking about 105, 106. And so in 1 year's period of time, we spent 12 ER visits and 5 hospital stays, and they couldn't tell what it was going on. He has scars from PICC lines and Broviacs and multiple different tests where they tested him for every known possible syndrome in the world. And we already knew he had Fragile X, but at that stage of the game, there really wasn't a connection. Again, this was really still somewhat young. I mean, I think, Randi, when you started doing it, it wasn't even Fragile X, it was Martin Bell syndrome. So, things hadn't evolved at that point in time. Yeah, so it was, as a matter of fact, you know, Carrie told you about her dad. Her dad was actually one of the original fax test cases that came on, because it was one of our visits with Max coming up here that Mind Institute's always been really good about not just asking about how they're doing and running through just the medical portions of it. I've told people, if you've got anybody that has some sort of an autism, it was the first time we came to an appointment, somebody told me about my son, not about his disorder. It was the very first time we ever had an appointment where somebody actually sat down and watched him for about 4 days worth of doctor's appointments, and at the end of it, they walked in and said, here's what he has. This is not only his diagnosis, but this is his strengths, this is his weaknesses. And so that sort of carried on as we went through a number of visits over the years, and we started having conversations about what was happening in the family and what was taking place. And Randi had started to see a pattern. So other families that had come and started talking about their fathers and grandfathers that were starting to have these types of issues that started to show like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's types of issues. He was, like she said, he was an architect, and it was really interesting, and it was really something I always remember is he used to get in trouble all the time because he'd walk down the hall and he'd spill the coffee because he couldn't keep his hand straight. But he was an old school architect. He drew longhand, did not use a computer, and his lines were still perfectly straight. That muscle memory and everything else was there. But what we've seen through the years is so many things that have changed. The different medications that have come up, the different types of treatments. But the one thing I think what has helped us the most, and the one thing that I stress so oftentimes when we've talked about this, is early intervention. So we got lucky. We got really lucky. At his age, typical autism diagnosis was not being diagnosed until typically about 5 to 6 years of age, and oftentimes later. Again, fast forward, there's a lot of things that have changed now. There's a lot more diagnosis. At that stage of the game, it was like pulling teeth to get it. But when they did a DNA test, and they tested him, and he came back with Fragile X, he was just over a year of age at that point in time. And so that allowed us to get a lot of additional services and a lot of different things. And I think that's really, really been helpful for him. He's also got a very sweet personality, as if you've heard my wife say, and he has his own things that he likes to do his own things. And as long as you roll with his punches, life is going to be great.
Mhm, yeah, pretty much.
Max, come up here and talk to us.
You want to sing?
You saw Kenny Chesney.
Okay, yeah.
3 times, okay. So his favorite is Kenny Chesney. So he's basically telling you he saw Kenny Chesney, and he did have an opportunity 3 years ago?
Something like that.
Again, through our trips to Washington, D.C., again, world is really strange. It becomes very small when you let things that are challenges in your life take you to places that you don't normally. We ran into somebody that we met by accident in an airport in Texas because we were laid over. Come to find out, he was Secret Service. His old partner became the head of security for Kenny Chesney. We've stayed in touch all the years. He got us backstage in Tahoe on the 3rd of July, and we actually watched the concert, and Max got an opportunity to watch the concert on stage. He sort of stood side stage the whole time and watched the concert. Met Kenny Chesney. Kenny was not sure what to do with it because everybody runs at him, and Max looked at him and said, just sort of like what you talked about with Lars, and said, no. So he's led us to places that we would have never made in a million years thought that we'd have gone. So.
Well, in DC as well, when we go with the National Fragile X Foundation to lobby for Fragile X, you meet some really interesting people from all over the country. Plus, you're getting to go on the House floor and all these things that I wouldn't have thought that's what I would be doing with my life, but it's been fun. We've had a good time with it. Make the best of everything, right? Yeah. So,
Yeah, this family are great in being advocates for Fragile X.
Well, and the thing is, and I know from asking Randi who sort of the audience was, there's sort of a mixed group that is in here. And the one thing I'll tell you as you go through this is the things you learn, the places you're going to take that and introduce that is very interesting. So, 9 years ago, I actually ran and was elected on a school board, and I've been on a school board now for 9 years. And it's allowed me to have a lot of interactions within the school district sites of things, not only talking about just, not just Fragile X, but actually disabilities and stuff that has changed. And when we talk about changes, even in the last 10 years, what's happened in the school systems have oftentimes changed. But you take these learned lessons and you find other ways to input them into your lives and into your neighbors and stuff of that nature. You start to have these conversations and you stumble into people in the strangest of places that all of a sudden need information from you or have an ounce of information to be able to give to you. So it's one of those pieces that, what you learn here, share, because there's going to be people that are going to take just that little bit and then reach out and grab a little bit more information to help them out.
Absolutely. Now, we have some international doctors who can come on up here. Onar and Elisa and May, can you come up here and give us your perspective?
First of all, thank you for having us today. I'm Onur. I'm a professor of child and adolescent psychiatry in Turkey, and I'm working on autism, Fragile X, and the other rare diseases. I'm an academician, and I used to plan all the things in rare diseases in the country. So I can say something about the perspective in Europe and in the other countries. The first thing to say is most of the developed countries are far behind US in terms of Fragile X. And this is because you have institutions like Mind Institute established years ago. I came here the first time 10 years ago, and I met Randi, and we have a rare disease action plan nowadays in the country. So it's, and what's happening in Europe is there is another way of handling there. They're not focusing on one disease. They're trying to organize everything for rare diseases together. And they're pushing the countries, member countries, for having action plans. So, and France, Germany, and pharmaceutical industry is like kind of leading that. And it's the same in US, I think. If the industry is involved, then the services are increasing. That's what happens for the families, because I'm trying to organize the things for the families for not only Fragile X, but the other, like the things we, spinal muscular atrophy, maybe you heard about that. We organized the screening programs. This was the first, and it was the first in a country-wide thing. I think the screening program in Turkey. We tried to organize the newborn screening and pre-marriage screening together. And now we have that for SMA. What means we will have many other examples for Fragile X as well, because the methods are similar. So if you have one in your hands, the SMA is kind of a leading thing for Fragile X screening in the world. Israel has another program. Belgium is working on another program. And the screening is kind of coming for everyone. And the other thing is these specialized clinics. I think the need for these ones are prominent in many countries. I'm just checking the notes. Coming to Turkey, yeah, we are the number one population for the genetic disorders in EU zone, because it was the center of the empire, Ottoman Empire. Many people were coming to be treated for many conditions, and I think they were staying. And we have some in-family weddings beforehand. So I think we have maybe the number of genetic diseases are like the total in the other parts of Europe. And we have over 8 million population in Turkey, half under 18 or so. And we have a strong health system, and our reimbursement umbrella is covering 95% of the population for free. So we are lucky about that. If you have any genetic condition, you can just go to a hospital and everything is free for you. But it has some cons and pros. We have many patients, like we cannot see 10 patients a day because the system has to survive by seeing much more patients. And at the end, I want to thank to Randi and Rabi because they are like, I'm sorry to say that, but she's like the grandmother of Fragile X. So, and she's the academic mother of many people like me in all over the world. So even today, we have, I learned many things from you, from the other people. You just coming to an event, and it's sometimes when something is routine, then you can forget about its value. But many people in the world does not have even such a situation, such an event. So it's so valuable for many people. So I took a photo from here and just sent to the people. We have a non-profit organization for Fragile X now. It's only 70 members are included, and they're waiting for similar things. I think we will host you. Thank you so much for listening, and I will pass to you.
Hello everyone, I'm Elisa. I'm finishing up my last year of medical residency in Rome, Italy. I'm going to be a child and adolescent neuropsychiatrist, which means that my specialization is in both pediatric neurology, pediatric psychiatry, and neurodevelopmental pediatric. So the first time I heard about Fragile X, I was in an epilepsy clinic, and it was just mentioned. It was, oh, if you see an entire family with epilepsy and some neurodevelopmental delay, you may consider Fragile X. But I only got to know Fragile X when I started a rotation in one of the clinics my university is associated with, which is a central point in Italy for Fragile X. It's a pediatric clinic, so we only see patients from 0 to 18. And even there, we saw patients coming from everywhere in Italy, so the age of diagnosis and the type of intervention they were able to get was quite different. Last year, we looked up the mean age of diagnosis for our patients, and it's around 5 years of age. For reference, here in the US is around 3. So we still have a long way to go. But as Anur mentioned, we have a universal healthcare system. So the good thing is if you have a doctor that can prescribe you a test or a medicine, it's completely free. And once you have a Fragile X diagnosis, you can get even more support. Of course, the support is not the same in all regions of Italy. So you'll have places that don't have the same opportunities for rehabilitation or for specialized care. And one thing that's actually not freely available, not really the same level as in the US, it's the psychopharmacological approach. We tend to be much more cautious with psychopharmacological interventions. That comes both from the doctors. We don't have guidelines, not just for Fragile X, but for younger children, like below the age of 5, we don't really have medication that are supported by our national system as an intervention for anxiety or ADHD. And so you have to prescribe off-label. Then there is the parents that often see medication as a way of controlling behavior, as a last resort if the rehabilitation intervention has not worked. So we tend to wait or to just use it for more severe cases. What I learned here, what has been really eye-opening, is how early intervention combined alongside rehabilitation, speech therapy, educational support can change the trajectory of kids. And that has been the most wonderful lesson, because one thing is to learn from a scientific paper that the numbers show that, starting sertraline can increase language in kids with Fragile X if started before like 5. And one thing is to see parents come in and say, he started talking. and that's amazing. So that is something that I hope we'll get in the future in Italy. And with this, I think I'll pass the mic to May and Thailand.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm May. I'm a developmental pediatrician from Thailand. I live in Chiang Mai, the northern part in Thailand. And it's not the main city as Bangkok, but it's kind of like a city, but like full of beauty of nature. You will like it. You should go there. Yeah, so, yeah. Actually, the place that I worked it's in Chiang Mai is the kind of like the university hospital, and we usually work with the neurodevelopmental disorder like autism, like ADHD, LD, or ID, but not as much like genetic disorder. Yeah, and. Yeah, the Fragile X syndrome is like a new one. Like, I mean, we have like we trying to get more diagnosed, but I think it's more like underdiagnosed still a lot in Thailand. Yeah, and yeah, so actually we don't have like a specific clinic for the Fragile X clinic like here at the MI or here in the USA. And yeah, but we are trying to get more like to get the diagnosis for these this disorder. And I learned from my perspective and my experience, like in Thailand, we still have a lot of big challenges about like we maybe lack of awareness of the Fragile X, especially in the family and even for the healthcare provider, maybe like lack of knowledge or kind of like experience. So, and they are like misdiagnosed or with autism or like global developmental delay. Yeah, and another thing that is the challenge for our country is a diagnostic barrier because to get the testing for the Fragile X, it costs a lot of money. Yeah, it's so expensive, and this is just in the only big hospital, like university hospital in the main city, but not in the like a rural area or like any part of the country. Yeah, so that's and it's not like. We have to pay like out of pocket. It's not covered by the universal health coverage. Yeah, so this limits the access and the in terms of the diagnosis or even the knowledge of this disorder. Yeah, so I think for being here at the Mind Institute is like eye-opening. Yeah, I've learned a lot from here, like especially for the Fragile X disorder syndrome and like a course of disease, like treatment options, especially like a new targeted treatment. So once when I come back to Thailand, I will have this knowledge and experience to apply with my patients. Thank you. So I'll pass to Pascal.
Pascal is just pre-med, but he can tell you what he's thinking about doing in the future.
Well, I'm not, I guess I'm the only one that's not a doctor here, but hopefully I will be one, yeah. So back home in Nigeria, I think it's a little bit the same. There are not a lot of resources available to support individuals who are like neurodivergent, and not just Fragile X, but autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. The same thing with genetic testing, it's expensive, and the system there is more self-pay, so not a lot of people have access to those kind of resources. My personal experience was when I volunteered at a center for kids with special needs. A lot of children with autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, and I guess this The place itself didn't have the best infrastructure, but the people who were working there, you could see how much they cared about these kids and how they were trying to help them with different speech therapies, motor exercises. And I think that was very good for me to see and also engage with them and see the different ways they are able to communicate with people. Being here at the Mind Institute has really taught me a lot. It has really broadened my knowledge on these conditions. And I hope to take this with me through my education, hopefully medical education as well, and grow as a physician too. Thank you.
Okay, so as you've heard, a lot of places around the world are a little bit farther behind, and I think that things like gene therapy, FMRP replacement therapy, you know, whether it's a shot you get once a week, or whatever, that'll happen sooner rather than later. It's happening for many disorders, not only sickle cell disease, but also CNS disorders, spinal muscular atrophy. They're doing newborn screening and initiating treatment right away. Angelman syndrome and Rett syndrome have stem cell therapies that are being studied, you know, as we speak. So I love this field of developmental and behavioral pediatrics because it has changed so much over my career. You know, when I was much younger, nobody talked about treatment. I started talking about treatment, about all the meds that could be helpful. And now we're dealing with targeted treatments, and then we'll go on to gene therapy. And because of the discovery of FACS tests, I'm very interested in neurodegenerative disorders, things that can be helpful for the aging brain, and oftentimes treatments that may be helpful for Alzheimer's or FACS tests could be helpful for Parkinson's disease or other disorders. So it's a very exciting area of research, both neurodevelopment and neurodegeneration, and we hope to have much better treatments in the future. That's why I can't retire, because it's just too exciting. It's just too exciting, and there's too much to do. Yeah, there's too much to do, and there are needs all over the world. So it's a very exciting field to go into and to think about international programs. And I'm so thankful about our ITPND, our International Training Program for Neurodevelopmental Disorders, because I learn new things every day from these doctors that come to work with us and to share information. And then they go back, another trainee, Dragana Protek from Serbia, she went back and started the Eastern European Fragile X Association. She even sees patients with Fragile X from Ukraine. They take a 20-hour bus ride to come to her clinic. And so all over Eastern Europe, and she's initiating targeted treatments. And she got a position politically in the ministry, as you have in the past, you know, where she can do much more for individuals with neurodevelopmental disorders. And she's also great with media. So we have amazing people. And even Dr. Chioma Mobutu from Nigeria, she's working with her husband, who's an OBGYN doctor, and she runs the autism clinic, and they're screening for Fragile X and early ovarian failure in both of their clinics now, and finding a number of individuals that have Fragile X and could benefit from metformin and some of these other treatments. So it's a very exciting area of clinical work and research. And so some of you may want to move into this field, but I want to, you know, open it up for any other questions you guys may have. We have many minutes left. Yes?
Yeah. Have you heard about 9P deletion syndrome?
Oh, 9P deletion. Yeah. Sometimes that can cause autism. Do you have someone with a 9P deletion? Yeah. So the thing is, there can be probably about 10% of those with autism can have a deletion or a duplication 15q is very common. 15q deletion or duplication, but there are many other deletions and duplications. So the first test that's done when a diagnosis of Fragile X is made is what's called a CGH array and then Fragile X DNA testing. So you can see if there's a deletion or duplication or Fragile X, and then if those are all negative, then we do whole genome sequencing or whole exome sequencing to look for a point mutation. And actually, in about 40 to 50% of those with autism, particularly those with intellectual disability, we can find a cause of their autism. Now, the autism can be made worse by environmental toxicity. If you grow up near a place where they're using insecticides or pesticides or Roundup, your chance of having autism is much higher than if you live far away from that. We now know that pollution can increase your risk for autism. So people that grow up in very polluted areas can have a higher risk for autism, and even for other, for neurodegenerative disorders. So pollution, and especially if there's fires, and you heard that at the plenary session. So there's a lot of environmental toxins that can make things worse, a lot of background gene effects that can make things worse, besides the point mutations, deletions, or duplications. But Fragile X causes anywhere from 2 to 5% of autism, depending on what country. Actually, in Thailand, it gets up to 7% from Limperset studies. And I've done a lot of work in Colombia where it seems to be higher too. But of those with Fragile X syndrome, about 60% have autism in the boys and about 20% in the girls. So autism runs very high in Fragile X syndrome. So it's an important subtype, and I think it'll lead to gene therapy and specific targeted treatments much faster than other forms of autism, and perhaps even faster than the 9p deletion form of autism. That may take the CRISPR-Cas9 to edit that region and replace it with a normal set of genes for that region to cure that autism. But it'll come. It'll come. And there was a question right behind you. Yeah.
I used to be a compounder of chemotherapy, and I'm a compounder in the IV room.
Yeah.
Does that, my exposure to those medicine, does that affect my kids also? Because you're telling it's environmental toxins.
Yeah, but you're not, so the medications that we worry about are chemotherapeutic agents that kill cells. But you didn't take those, right? You didn't take those, so that's okay. Yeah, you were exposed, but not taking them. I don't think that's a problem. Yeah.
So do you believe that the causes of autism are like vaccines?
No.
See, I don't believe it. And my friends who are like, no, it's vaccine. I said, I have 3 boys. They have the same, vaccination. Why the other one is normal and this two is autistic?
Yeah, it's not caused by vaccines, and there are many studies out there that show that that's not the case. So don't worry about that. And it's genetics, right? Well, it's genetics, for probably about 40 to 50%, and environmental toxicity and other things that we do in our society, like even babies that are severely premature and have, white matter tracts that are a little bit screwed up, that can also lead to autism. Many, many causes of autism. And it'll probably turn out to be more than 60%. So there could be multiple genes working together, okay, that can have an additive effect leading to autism.
But not vaccines.
Not vaccines.
Thank you.
Not vaccines.
I'm a physical therapist in the NICU, and I did some research just about cyclical lighting and the effects of that on our premature babies. and establishing circadian rhythm. And in some of the articles, they talked about how women who are pregnant, who are night nurses, it can actually affect their fetuses, like I think serotonin levels.
Yeah.
Therefore, they are at higher risk, to have depression and social anxiety and all these other types of issues. And it so kind of correlates to when you talk about environmental effects and while pregnant and it's
and particularly for the baby that is in, huge amount of light all day and all night.
Yeah, and once they're born preterm. Right?
Yeah, born preterm, that causes a lot of chaos in the brain.
But I was just speaking of to like the nurses that were pregnant and working at night and how that can affect.
Yeah. And I remember when I was a resident and pregnant at Stanford University, and I took care of one kid that later turned out to have cytomegalovirus, and I thought, oh my God, my baby's gonna have cytomegalovirus. You get exposed to a lot of stuff in medicine, but
now they know,
yeah.
The people do not work with the kids that are being ruled out for
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. Actually, any problem, I think, can, that impacts the brain, even viral infections at different times during pregnancy, things that cause inflammation, autoimmune diseases, all kinds of things can have an impact on the fetus. So it's kind of scary, so you got to be really careful. And don't travel to a place that has a Zika virus when you're pregnant. Because that's a little hard on the brain of the fetus too. It's really hard. So you got to be careful.
The UC Davis Mind Institute was founded in 1998 with the promise to reduce and prevent the disabilities that can be associated with autism and other neurodevelopmental conditions. Every day, our clinicians and researchers make progress on that promise. Our groundbreaking research on autism, Fragile X syndrome, chromosome 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, ADHD, and other conditions associated with disability are helping affected individuals achieve their fullest potential. Please visit our website or our social media platforms to find out more about current studies, upcoming events, and how you can help make a difference.